Hello and welcome all of you who are attending, and maybe those of you who see it after it's been recorded. We hope we go worldwide. A lot of the photos and pictures that you will see in the upcoming presentation have come out of one of these volumes of the TNMC Annals, and these are incredible books. We have many, many, many volumes, 10, 20, 50 volumes of the history of all of Tartang Rinpoche's projects, all the things we've accomplished, all the people that have been touched. And so throughout this one, there were all kinds of lovely photos that I could copy and show. And I only took a tiny snippet out of this. So I'm going to hand this to people in the room because they might like to take a look at it. And for anybody who is at one of our Nyingma institutes, especially here in Berkeley, and maybe Monlam Center, and even the International Center, some of these annals are available to just browse through and look at the historical beauty that's been developed over the last 55 odd years. So I am going to be talking about Tibetan. You want to put the first one on? The title of our presentation is coming up here. Often when I talk about Tibetan Aid Project, I mention the same thing, and some of you may have heard it before, but this is a 3x5 card upon which I only scribbled little lines. But when a 3x5 card was handed to me by Tartang Rinpoche, it had the address of a Tibetan on it. And his question to me was, can you send $10 a month to my friend Lama, my Lama friend? His English wasn't too great in the beginning. And of course, he was meeting a lot of people for Wednesday interviews and in other situations. And I think he asked everybody he met, can you send $10 a month to help my friends protect the Dharma? And so this is how Tibetan Pen Friends got started. And we would write back and forth letters from the pen friend to the pen friend and then back to us. And these were all people who were very dedicated to the Dharma. So us young Dharma students were getting this infusion from people who were so completely engaged in it as their own activity. And we ended up with, over the years, about 2,000 people who were sending funds every month. And when I did a small calculation, initially, those 2,000 people sending between $10 and $20 ended up being about $40,000 a month going overseas. And we sent it by international money order. So this was going straight from us to the pen friend person. And that worked for several years until the Indian post office, some people figured out there was money in all these envelopes that they were seeing coming and going, and they started absconding with them. And then Rinpoche started a system of sending the funds in groups to monasteries, who then sent the distribution out to the various people where it was supposed to go. And the kinds of things that this accomplished was helping the children to go to school, having enough food for the family to eat, helping them trying to improve their housing situations, which were really just shacks and shanties for a long time. It made big changes in people's lives. This tiny amount of money for us made big changes for them. And over the 20 years that we kept it going actively, we're talking about, in the millions of dollars going one person to another person. I'm saying this because this is how Rinpoche tends to start big things in little ways. This one little card, this one little address that became one of my best friends for as long as he lived. He died very young, but touched my heart really, really deeply. And for many of the other people who were pen friends, they didn't just send money. They didn't just send letters. Some of them ended up sponsoring whole villages and whole schools and, doing things in bigger ways that were completely out of their own hearts and qualities. So these small actions with full intention and purpose and right action, built to very magnificent things for which we can't take credit for everything, but we take credit for the stimulating aspect of encouraging people to do something kind and something truly helpful. So how did we get so that we were shipping 6.5 million books to Tibetans? The same way, step by step, hand by hand. If any of you have not yet seen the film A Higher Purpose, please take a look at it. I think we have a link here on one of these slides for all the films that are available through Tibetan Aid Project and on YouTube, but look for A Higher Purpose. And because it explains a lot of how many of us have stayed with the tradition and with Tartang Rinpoche for so long, because the intentionality and the interest was so needed and so compelling to be connected and to be doing things that really benefited on our side and their side. What's the next slide? I think this is, oh yeah. Oh, these are the films. So maybe you can go back to this slide at some point and look at the films that you can look up on YouTube, and there's just a link into Higher Purpose. And I think this slide here, this was a drawing that was made by one of my dear friends who was a Tibetan Aid Project volunteer. And every single line in this art says peace. Every single line is peace in tiny, tiny, tiny graphics. And so you'd have to blow it up. But I sort of felt like that's really expressive of what happens with these small actions. You like prayers from prayer wheels and prayer flags being blown out into the wind. You start this small ripple effect that goes out and out and out, and peace in the world. And everything that Tibetan Aid Project does has that kind of intentionality of affecting things far, far away from us and into the future. So some of the ways, I think we've got some posters coming up. Oh, no. Okay, this is just a hint for what's coming later in the talk. And this is Xiong Quan, who is going to be the chef this year for the Taste and Tribute dinner here at the Nyingma Institute. She's going to cook the whole dinner with assistance, I assume, but it's all her menu. She's a very renowned Korean chef who has become very popular in the US and was already exceedingly popular in Korea. She grows her own garden and she prepares everything that she presents. And I think she's carrying a lot of food here to serve. Yeah, and she's a nun. So she's bringing the food that she can only grow and create in Korea to us for this special dinner. So that's why we're doing all of this is the intentionality of the higher purpose of activity moving towards taste and tribute, which then moves towards distribution of all the Tibetan literature. So other ways that we, okay, go ahead. Yeah, here. So this is one of two posters I'm going to show you, but after Rinpoche sort of exhausted the names that he had brought with him from India of Tibetans who needed help, Tibetans then started writing back to him saying, well, what about me? And what about my children? And we started getting literally thousands of letters from Tibetans. And so we developed a whole sort of qualifying process or sorting out process for where they were, who they were, what kind of needs they had. And they were required to send a little application to us and a picture. And so we had all these pictures of so many lovely people. And these were genuine people who became pen friends. And we advertised them on the BART trains, and this was in the very early years of the BART when it wasn't cluttered with a whole lot of regular advertising, so we were really popular on the BART. And then we also put some on the buses where you'd have a little tear-off sheet, and you'd pull that off and take it home with you. And so this was the very first one that we did and distributed it around. And I didn't have a chance to find the picture where these two young gentlemen are standing inside their house, inside Tibet, with this poster in their house. So that's really, it really goes around. So this next one should be, yeah, so these are more faces, all ages of faces. And if you could get really up close, you can really see the expressions of these lovely people. But this is how we built this Tibetan Aid Project, Pen Friend Project, up to 2,000 people and beyond. And at the time that we were promoting or initiating this activity, in the 1970s, I just sort of looked up how many refugees there were in the world. Well, there were about 10 million around the world, mostly from Vietnam and Cambodia. Tibet wasn't even, you know, a trickle of being considered at that point. But now the magnitude of refugees in the world is more than tenfold. It's 123.2 million refugees in the world that need this same kind of assistance and help. That just kind of helped me put things in perspective, how things happened and how they grew. So all through our history, let's see what's next. Okay, so here, in the early years, Rinpoche was very kind of strategic and also very natural in inviting leaders of the various sects and lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, kind of making a link with all of them, making a link to us in Berkeley and to our activities. So in this slide, I have to get closer to remember who's in this one. Oh, he is with Dzongtsar Khyentse Rinpoche on the right side and Dilgo Khyentse on the left side, and Dilgo Khyentse's family. Yes, he's in there too. Yes, as a child. Yeah. Yeah, Zechen Rabsham is a little boy who Dilgo Khyentse was very strict with him, even though there was all kinds of things going on in Berkeley and activities and things like that. He had to do his practice every day, no questions, right on time. And he had this watch, and we all looked and we said, "Oh, what a lovely watch you have." And he goes, "Works, yeah, good watch." Little things, just very simple encounters with them sometimes. And the next one, I think it has Sakya Trizin on the left side and Dujum Rinpoche on the right side with Rinpoche. So they all came and stayed in either Nyingma Institute or Padma Ling and did ceremonies for us. And Dujum Rinpoche, I'm not sure if it's this trip or the next trip when he came, he blessed the Odeon Center and helped us find water with the water witch in one part of the property. He was quite skilled at that. So just expressing that he was making links around the globe with us and our small group of students and activities, and also asking them for names of pen friends. So that's one thing also is it's non-sectarian in terms of the Pen Friend Project. It was all four major lineages of Tibetan Buddhism who were receiving it, that kind of personal assistance, and monks and nuns as well. Next slide. Okay, so now we're talking about how we began working on the literature to develop the big collections of Tibetan literature. And these are pictures of people at the presses, in the warehouses. And for those of you who haven't worked in presses, there's always lots of paper everywhere, dust and paper everywhere. But what I'm seeing here is from about 1989 is when Rinpoche began the Monlam ceremony in Bodh Gaya. But before that, we'd already been printing the Kanjur and Tanjur. So this was starting printing of the Nyingma treasures. And this is a tremendous amount of energy expressed by the volunteers and people who were working on the presses. We all felt like we were participating in something where, in a sense, the world was on fire. Rinpoche's hair was on fire to get things accomplished, to try to save this literature, to save the culture. So we rode that wave of his energy and put all our energy into it. So each one of these people is not just doing that little job they're pictured, they're doing something 12 hours a day that's never pictured. It's hard to describe how much enthusiasm we all had for accomplishing this, and how he was able to express to us the importance of what this literature could offer our culture and the world. And I think the next one is a couple more stages of the presses, and maybe moving more toward the binder. You can see how big the press is. Whoops. Well, okay, that's okay. There we go, back to the press. And making plates, and the top one on the left there is Leslie working on details with specific texts. So having worked in some of the pre-prep for these books, big teams of us would work page by page, and we would work for months to develop a book ready to be printed, and the press would gobble it up in 3 days. You know, that's the big trade-off of how long it takes to present and copy and organize and include the art and all the acknowledgments and all the prayers and mandalas and blessings that go into the books. Takes many weeks and months. But the presses can really activate that energy very fast and make 5,000, 10,000 copies very quickly. So how we started paying for shipping, actually, on another parallel area here, Tibetan Aid Project was paying for anything that was shipped into Tibet. And at the time, we were able to send books and thangkas. And many Tibetans had had their thangkas destroyed or hidden from the Chinese. So sending the paper reproductions that we were able to create was a really special gift for them. So we would roll up big tubes of thangkas and ship them off straight into Tibet. There were different years where we couldn't get them into Tibet, and we kind of had to hold them in India for distribution when somebody could go to India, and other times when the borders would open up more and we could ship things in. But TAP took that responsibility on very early. So the big responsibility of shipping these huge collections also fell partially, not wholly, not 100%, but big portions of the shipping, of the container shipping, has fallen onto Tibetan Aid Project. And so we started out, the Monlam began, what do I say this? In 1991, in 1989, we sent about 40 boxes. And there were only the 40 lamas that were in the ceremony with Rinpoche for 40 days. That was the very beginning of the Monlam. Then we skipped a little bit of a year because one was end of December, the other was beginning of da-da-da. So 1991, we sent 81 boxes by air with some of us who went over to be as part of the ceremony. And 2,000 to 3,000 people showed up. We were flabbergasted. It just exploded. The teachers understood how important it was to do these prayers at the site of the Buddha's blessing and enlightenment, and also considering, and this kind of took a while for me to really get it in me, they didn't have any place to go in Tibet that felt that way to them. So going to Bodh Gaya in India was really the heart of the tradition and the heart of the whole flowering of Buddhism. So coming to Bodh Gaya, Rinpoche had stressed to many teachers that this was a really important place to be. And he kept encouraging them to do ceremonies, but it's a very big effort to take students from your monastery, take them 300, 400, 500 miles to Bodh Gaya and sit there in an area which was very poverty stricken. There were no infrastructures, no things that we expect. Water, no. Clean water, definitely not, and all the other facilities that we expect are part of daily living were not there. And so all that had to be developed over time. But Rinpoche was still encouraging them, and he had visited there before he came to America and realized the power of the place and why it was so important for everyone to go and do the ceremonies. And so by air, and a funny little story is when these boxes of books landed in the Delhi airport, all these Indian guys came over and said, religious literature, I want to carry a box. And these are the Indians. I want to carry a box. And we're going, wait a minute, where are you carrying box to? Kind of thing. Because we had to corral all these boxes along with our luggage. But it was kind of a sweet moment, It's like it was precious to them as well, even though it wasn't their tradition. But they recognized that there was something valuable. So within 1992, we were sending 5 container loads of books. Okay, this is when the costs start really going up. Okay. Containers have been costing somewhere in the neighborhood of $5,000 a piece to ship, probably quite a bit more right now, but over the decades, it's been about that. So do the math, whatever it is, 30 containers times 5 is $180,000 needed to be raised just to be able to manage the shipping. And in addition, for many years, Tibetan Aid Project, as well as other aspects of our organizations, were also fundraising for the printing of all this and the sponsoring of all the volunteers who were actively involved. There must be another. Okay, this is a very nice picture of the year when Rinpoche was able to attend. I think he was there maybe 3 or 4 times. And he was able to do some of the book distribution himself. And I just love seeing this kind of joy and gratitude. And, people were thronging to receive these books. And now it takes days to distribute them all. The quantity of books that we're shipping and the value of them all. And Rinpoche actually, just sort of as an aside, after about the 4th or 5th year, I think it was, Rinpoche he was already familiar, he knew the Queen of Bhutan, the Queen Mother of Bhutan, and because he had traveled there for some reason, practice. And she said to her entire country, you must go on a pilgrimage sometime to Bodh Gaya from Bhutan. So there was a year when 20,000 Bhutanese showed up, along with the 10,000 Tibetans in the ceremony. So that meant that all the seats on the floors and on the areas around the temple were filled with the practitioners, and all of the circumambulation walks were crowded. There's 3 or 4 very large circumambulation walks. We're just buzzing with people all day long. And it was a little bit hard on the infrastructure that year for sure, but the amazing willingness to pilgrimage that far, just on the saying of a respected person in their country, that was really amazing. And likewise, all of the Tibetans, there were several lamas that would show up at different years where they had to walk over the mountains and into India illegally to get to the ceremony, and they did it. And they had to walk back carrying books. And that was before a lot of the monasteries started arriving in buses. And then they could put the books in the buses and made it a little bit easier on them. But, all of this grew step by step by step by step. What do we have next here? Oh yeah, this picture, I just adore this picture because look at those happy faces. It's just like they just got Christmas presents, kind of our parallel. But this picture, I guarantee these very lovely children are now about 30 or 40 years old because we've used this picture so many times, but it's just so gracious and caring. And these are books that they were receiving personally. So I know my count's going to be wrong, but I think we calculated at one point, any monk who has attended all of the Bodh Gaya ceremonies and received the books given to personally have something in the neighborhood of 200 volumes of literature in their private library. That's a lot of And then that's not including all the books that we give to the monastery as a whole, the big collections and things like that. So we have filled what we call 3,000 monastic institutions with the literature that they need for the study. And in one of these years when Rinpoche was in Bodh Gaya, he had a very important meeting with all of the High Lamas who were there that year, and there were quite a large number of them. And he made a vow and a promise to them that he would provide the literature for their educations if they would start what's called Shedras, which is the Tibetan system of college. Up until that time, they were all working their way sort of upwards towards that, but weren't quite there. But the practice of having all the texts that they would need to complete that educational degrees was amazing. So he made that promise on our energy. So, but we all agreed, of course. So next comes. Oh, no, go. Is that the next one? Okay, so that's a sample of what a Pecha volume library would look like. Now, this is like the same books that the boys were holding. They're not Western style. They're Tibetan style where they can do loose leaf, roll it page by page. And so each one of these little boxes that look up there is an entire volume. And these are common Tibetan libraries. But just to give an example of, that's not all that we've given them. But I mean, that's just a lovely expression of the care and the beauty that they put into their library settings. And next. Okay, this is a picture of Tartang Monastery. And this is a rebuild. Very much part of Tartang Monastery was destroyed when the Chinese came through. And Rinpoche was not present for that time of destruction. He was already in Bhutan studying with Khyentse Rinpoche. But just to give you an example, you can see how many monks are in this picture. I didn't try to count them, but you're looking at 200 or 300 at least. And this is just one temple. And I remember having a conversation with Rinpoche once where he was saying, oh yeah, big monasteries. And I said, oh yeah, how big? And he says, UC Berkeley is nothing compared to how big the Tibetan monasteries are in terms of the geography and in terms of the buildings. And that was kind of shocking to me, really. Something could be bigger than UC Berkeley, which is a pretty big campus in general. And there are many that are bigger, but just that, got that in my head. Then when he showed, we saw pictures in some of the other books, and you have monasteries in Tibet that were whole mountainsides. And then the valleys below were where the lay people who lived and supported them, their families, and different aspects of the community. But these monasteries were enormous universities. No small stuff going on. This is really an important culture to preserve for what it has been, how it has been built in Tibet and what it can offer, and how they are so dedicated and devoted to it. Next. Okay, so that's another picture of Rinpoche giving a book, and Bodhanath. And this is part of the distribution. The other things that were going on somewhat simultaneously, we had a couple pilgrimages of Westerners who went into Tibet and did trips. And so that's just an expression of one of their budgets and things, and where they're giving support to the monasteries that they visited. And yeah, I don't expect you to read it, and I can't read it from here, but that was another way of raising funds, sort of an adjunct of TAP, where people would go on pilgrimage and pay for the opportunity, not just their airfare and their hotels and food, but also make these major offerings to the monasteries. And then also being given a kind of an inside story. I'm going to insert this funny little story, but it's not really related to this particular pilgrimage, but Peter Coyote, who's many of you know, is a very famous narrator and actor. And Peter narrated several of the Tibetan Aid Project films. And he has a wonderful, wonderful voice. He's also a Buddhist himself. He's a Zen priest now. But when he went into Tibet, and he went to a very small area of Tibet, and up into the hillside, he went into the people down below were saying, oh, you have to go see the head lama, da, da, da. And he goes, okay, okay. And, but it's this little tucked away kind of place. This is not like on the tourist route. He goes into this tucked away place and he meets this head lama, and he looks up at the wall behind the lama, and there's all our books sitting there. And it just blew him away. He said he was so proud of the fact that he had this small piece of offering to by narrating the films that then actually made it to the place it was designed to go. You know, the books made it, you know, sort of thing, and there he is witnessing it. So anyway, that's a wonderful story. So those things happen on pilgrimages, but I thought that was very, very, very wonderful that he could share that. Next. This is just a tiny little piece of how the distribution is going. I forget what this one says. What does it say up there? Oh,
distribution.
Book distribution to different countries, right?
Yeah, India 612, Nepal 1,184, Bhutan 937, Tibet 636, total monasteries receiving books 3,369.
So it's just an example that things they're going very widespread and without discrimination against any particular culture, country, or sectarian group. They're going to everybody who needs them. So this comes into the section of the program that I call beauty in my notes. And I think this is a really huge part of how this tradition has been expressed to us. I mean, you can just look at the background behind me, which is a beautiful, gorgeous altar. You know, that wouldn't be in my life if Rinpoche wasn't in my life. If he hadn't been one of the people who got here really early and brought the whole tradition of not just literature and not just mantra and not just sitting on the pillow, but the art and all the deities and the way that they sort of express their cultural specifics. Beauty is a big part of it. And for him, it's true in the landscaping of everywhere that we have properties, especially at Ratnaling and at Odeon. This is a picture of one of the stupas at Ratnaling that's kind of tucked away in a tiny little private garden space. But look how gorgeous that scene is. You know, you don't see the whole thing, but it's so natural and so right there, feels appropriate. I just love it. So along with beauty comes, yes, okay, so these are more examples. These are prayer flags flying with prayer wheels behind them in one part of Odeon, which is also, what do you call it? Going along the top, along the, above the flags, you'll see a mantra, which is Lansa. Yeah, Lansa, sorry. It's a Lansa, and I think it's a, I can't say it. No, I think it's 1,000 Names of the Buddha. Goes all the way around the building on the inside and the outside. So where in the universe can you find places where there's so much symbolism packed into one picture and so much depth of expression about what's important to offer the world? Prayer wheels, prayer flags, and the visual mantra. They're all parts of enlightenment being shared. And then look at the flowers that are right next to them. I mean, the beauty is just all there with them. And I think that's been key to a lot of things that we have done and that we've been able to offer. It's not just utilitarian. It's not just functional. accomplishment. It's done with a kind of grace and beauty that really touches your heart and sort of nourishes your soul or your spirit. So in that vein, when we were creating fundraising, what's next, Cass? Oh, okay, that's at the Monlam. I'll let you look at it for a while we talk about developing taste and tribute. We had done some dinners up in the hills in Tilden Park on a very nice scale. But a couple of our friends who were chefs had to work very, very hard to put together these dinners. And one of them, who was truly a professional chef, Laurent Monrique, who's very noted and acknowledged French chef, said, "Oh, I think I can think of another way to do this kind of event." And he said, "I will invite more of my friends to come cook with us." So in conjunction with Sandy Olney, who is the head of Tibetan Aid Project, then they worked out how to make this happen. And they wanted 2 levels. One was to kind of upscale the event as not just being an annual dinner, but to upscale it and hopefully reach some of the more well-endowed people in San Francisco and reach a sort of higher echelon of influence and activity. And so we started doing Taste and Tribute in San Francisco at the City Club, and then it gravitated to another hotel, the name escapes me, really big famous one.
Ritz-Carlton.
Huh?
Ritz-Carlton?
Ritz-Carlton, that's it. Thank you. Did you go? It's a Robert in the
Four
audience here.
Seasons one.
And then the Four Seasons. And the Four Seasons was, as I understand it, the owner of the Four Seasons at that time was a privately family owned. He came to the Ritz-Carlton and he said, "You come over to my hotel. I will give it to you for free, the space." That was huge, but that only happened for a couple of years. And then they sold it and it became corporate, and then we had to pay a bundle for being there. But the prestige of having a dinner that amounted to 22 chefs, 11 different menus at tables, 4 different kinds of wines, so 11 times 4 is 44 different wines being served. It was a really fancy event, and a lot of time spent on live auctions and silent auctions. And they raised significant money over many years, and it kind of went up and down in different cycles. But it really put Tibetan Aid Project on the map in the minds of some people that it might not have touched otherwise, and was done very, very well. So we're going on to how we're making money for distributing the books, but let's go back to beauty. No, there. So this is in Bodh Gaya, in front of the stupa. The stupa is out of view. I think it's,
Over here?
no, that's not it. I think it's over to the right. So you're not going to see it. But what I'm trying to say is that everything you see there, except for the trees, are products of our activity and Rinpoche's creativity. It is just like a plethora, or everywhere you look, there is this beauty and expression.
You can see the monks and nuns like shoulder to shoulder down there.
Yes, yeah. So down on the grassy areas that are at the base of the stupa, that's where all the ceremony participants are. And then these banners are distributed in the various circumambulation walkways. That the stupa is sort of embedded down, and you have terraces that come up to where the ground level, because the stupa was dug out of the ground. I'm not saying that right. Historically, it was buried in sand for centuries. And when British explorers, they excavated it out, and they found all these terraces and walkways and all kinds of things. I mean, it's a huge cemetery of many, many teachers and lineages worldwide. So it's a big, big facility. But over the years, we have filled almost every bit of space available, and Rinpoche keeps finding more things to put there. So those things all appear for the ceremonies, for the Monlam, and then they're taken down. So there are times when you only see the grassy areas. So the next one I think is very similar. Oh, no, okay, there we have Taste and Tribute happening in the backyard of the Nyingma Institute. So we are no longer using the hotels, but the gorgeous renovation of the Nyingma Institute garden in the back is just an amazing setting. And the people in the foreground are all the chefs and the MC for the event. And I think you can scroll through a couple more that are, yeah. So that gives you a little bit longer perspective. You can kind of see a monitor way out there in the forward. So right here in Nyingma Institute backyard. And I think that event had 5 chefs plus all their assistants, following the tradition that Laurent had started of each chef makes 1 or 2 servings of the dinner, and the other chefs make the other ones, salad, soups, et cetera, And so this was still following that pattern. Next. And that's another view from the backside. Okay, here she is. This is our upcoming chef. And here she's working in her own garden. And like I said in the beginning, she is doing the whole event, planning the meals and doing the preparation. And also there's on the next day, on Saturday, there's a class where a cooking class where you can learn some of the dishes she's going to share. So those are two events. But just getting a feel for how earthy and genuine she is. And there she is. Now, this is the promotion. So any of you who are interested in buying tickets or knowing more about the event, you can go to the website page for Taste and Tribute. And here's more beauty. So we're getting, this is a view at Odeon. And this is looking out from what we call the rim structure or the living structure that surrounds the main temple, and to the moat that is totally surrounds the temple. And there's a walkway where that stupa is positioned. That's the walkway's just in front of it. Those are all maple trees, obviously in their glory. And on the other side there is a prayer wheel monument where there are over 2,000 prayer wheels spinning constantly. And underneath the prayer wheels are incredible plaques about some of them are entire texts, entire books, and some are history, Buddhist history, and there's one whole section of plaques about all the people who have died tragically in wars throughout history. And Rinpoche very specifically. Some things kind of choke you up in the odd moments, very specifically dedicated this monument to all those people who have died tragically. And they're not named, they're counted. Plaque after plaque after plaque after plaque. They're counted. So this is powerful. And this is an amazing offering to the world and to world history. And that's the view from my bedroom. Pretty nice view. The bedroom I get the opportunity to stay in when I'm there, not mine. Next one. So this is kind of the theme of what I've been trying to share with you, and why the food becomes important, because it raises money to make the beautiful books that then help save the tradition. And often things seem impossible, really seem impossible. They're too big, they're too hard, they're just too enormous. And when I look at this picture, I say, well, that sort of looks impossible. But yet, whether it's real or whether it's created in another way, it gives you a feeling of something that could be possible and could kind of like open your mind to something really, really different. So that's why I like it. And I think that's the end.
Yep.
Yeah. So we have 5 or 10 minutes. We can all say good night, or does anybody want to ask a question or probe another part of things? I know many of you have already participated in some of these activities. So unmute yourself if you want to say anything. Otherwise, we'll say good night. Anyone?
Can I say something?
Yes. Can you hear her when she talks, when Kaz talks? You guys hear her? Okay, yeah.
One time I was at Odeon.
Speak loudly too.
I was brand new at Odeon, and I was helping clean the main temple, not the main temple, where they do printing.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the women who have been there for a long time, long-term people, you might have even been there, were working, and we were talking about projects, and I was asking them questions about some of the projects that just seemed so impossible. How did they accomplish them? And Leslie Bradburn, to quote her, she said, "Frankly, my dear, if it's not impossible, we're not even going to try." We're not even going to bother.
Yeah, right. Yeah, rather arrogantly saying impossible is what we do for breakfast. Yeah.
But everybody cracked up.
Yeah.
It was wonderful.
No, it's really true. And that sensibility of when Rinpoche presents a challenge, it is usually something where you go, no, can't do it. And then he kind of nibbles a little bit more, and it's like, okay, maybe if we do it this way, you know, and then nibbles a little more, and maybe if we do it that way. And you finally get, so you start to own it yourself. And sometimes those conversations are not easy at all. I remember being sort of trapped in a room with 4 others where we were promising to finish something to do with the Nyingma treasures within 1 year. And it was like, you're talking about 450 volumes and binding, and they were still in printing and da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was like, he wouldn't let us leave the room until we promised. And then after we promised, ideas came forward. Okay, we'll do it this way. We'll try it that way. We'll do this. We'll do that. We made big changes to make things happen. You don't get to have the reality that you know right now to try to accomplish something that's enormous. You have to be willing to change and stretch, and then everybody needs to come on board, because people pulling you down with no, we can't, and no, I won't, doesn't work. Everybody's got to be kind of like full steam ahead kind of energy. But so then the impossible, everybody's sharing the impossible, and then it becomes possible. Yeah.
I remember some projects that we did that it was a deadline that made it more focused, because you had to make it by that deadline. And you couldn't mess around. You couldn't think about, you know, what you're getting for dinner or doing your laundry when you were doing your project. You had to just do your project. You were forced to be in the moment.
Yeah.
Because you wouldn't finish it otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing that I think a lot of us can attest to that operates is when you get a big enough team, anywhere from 5 to 50, you know, but when you have a team that's doing the thing and you're all focused on getting it done, a whole lot of the nattery stuff like you're talking about just fades away. Yeah. And the arguments and the things just drop, and you just go for it. And it's sort of a little magical thing about having the team be big enough that somebody gets tired, somebody else has strength, and they kind of like keep boosting each other up, you know, and sharing it. And it's amazing to have those kind of experiences. You don't get them every day. They come when there's a special intention and when there's a real special dedication to reaching farther than you ever thought you could. Well, thank you all for being here. And since we've recorded it, you can share it with other people and by going through the website somehow, somewhere, and look.
On YouTube,
no,
tomorrow.
It'll be on.
If you subscribe to our channel, all we publish publicly are the Sunday talks, so we're not going to send you constant emails or anything.
Right,
You'll
right.
just get a notification when we've uploaded one of our talks.
Yeah, and I think there's quite a few of them that have been recorded, so you can share them with other people, and I think it's nice, very nice. But thank you all for being here. Glad to be talking to so many friends. Hi, Janet, and bye, Lori, and hello, Linda, and
Morgan and Ellen.
is Ellen there?
I see
Oh,
Ellen.
Ellen. Oh, she didn't show us her picture. Hi, Ellen, and Frederica, and Robert, and Athena, and Kaz. Thank you all for being here. And Harriet. Bye.
All right, thank you.
No, you're welcome.
Love the beauty.
Yeah. Do we still have tickets?
Yeah, we have about 10 left.
Still 10 left. Share it with your friends. Thank you. I'm looking at Cass.
Judy,
Huh?
I'm gonna hit end now.
Janet saying something.
yeah, Linda sent you a little note. Linda, is it Lazarati? She
Yeah.
was, yeah, she sent a little note asking if she could make a donation for the dinner, even if she couldn't come. I
Oh,
just
yeah.
wanted to make sure you didn't miss
Oh, yeah.
that.
Yeah, thank you. People put things in the chat and I don't see the chat. Do you know Linda? Do you not have a
I do,
contact to
yeah.
her?
Is she still there?
I don't think so. I think she signed off
No,
already.
yeah, she left already.
Huh?
She said, Janet said she sent you a note.
No, but in the chat.
Oh, I see.
Maybe she provided her contact in the chat, perhaps.
Oh, that's true. That would have been good.
I wish I saw that. I
Yeah.
know who she is though. Linda has her ready. I'm gonna write that down.
Okay. And there's Williams in there somewhere. And we have
William
a
Kish.
William Kish. Hi, William.
Okay.
All right. Thank you all. I think we're going to turn
Okay,
it off
thank you,
now.
Judy.
Okay. Very nice system.